My name is Jeff Mathias, and I am the Marketing and Training Director over here at First Response Solar. Been in the solar industry about 18 years. 15 of that I owned a solar company in Sonoma County that specialized in solar and storage for residential communities. A lot of what I did during this time frame is looked at both what we call fuel switching, was moving from fossil fuels to electric devices and trying to export them or trying to power them through solar. As well as how best to use our solar systems in terms of our appliances and behaviors within the house. So that's what we'll be talking about today. A couple things before we go. This particular blog is going to focus on country properties because country properties are a little unique in the environment that in most country properties, we have to provide our own water through wells. A well pumps water from the ground, often puts in a storage tank. Then we have a booster pump that pumps that water into our house, into a pressure tank, and then we can turn on the sink and the water comes out of our sinks and our showers. Most country properties also have septic systems. Septic systems are how we get rid of our sewage. And so from our toilets, they go out into a septic tank that then we have to pump that effluent somewhere into a leach field. And so at my house, my house is below the leach field, so I actually have a pump that pumps that effluent up into the leach field, something that, again, takes another pump. Other things about country property, they usually require more irrigation because they're larger properties. They have vineyards, they might have bigger gardens, they have more outbuildings, sometimes they have more people living on them. Whole family may live on a property. And so really what we do is we find different types of usage settings on a country property, and that's what I want to focus on today. The few things I'll talk a lot about is wells. I mean, one of the things you have to watch on a country property is how you water. So in the old days, I used to try to tell customers under net energy metering, which was what was in effect with PG&E pre-April of 2023, is try to water at night because that's when power rates are really cheap. And a lot of people pushed back on me, and rightfully so, saying they were concerned that if a water pipe broke at night, they wouldn't know about it until morning and it could cause a lot of damage and cause a lot of pumping. So under Net Billing Tariff is what we're under now. It works perfect because we want you to pump that water and irrigate during the day as much as possible because we want to basically minimize how much power we export to the grid, and that means using power during the day, and we minimize the size of the storage battery we're going to need at night by not using as much power during the evenings. So the more I can shift my behaviors from nighttime to daytime, the more likely we're going to be to make it. But I want to talk to you about a few new technologies that are coming down the pike. Some of you, I'm sure you've heard of them, some you may not have. But a lot of things that we have a really good resource here with Sonoma Clean Power, who's located, of course, in Sonoma County. They have an Advanced Energy Center located in Santa Rosa. And the Advanced Energy Center will allow you to borrow, to view, and even to buy at a discount or finance different energy-saving devices that can be used. So one of the things they talk about a lot there is mini splits and heat pumps. So this is a mini split. This one actually operates in my house. I first put a mini split in my rental unit, my granny unit, because my mother-in-law moved into it, and all we had in there was a wood-burning stove. And so I put in a mini split, very similar to this one, into that unit, and it allowed her to keep the unit hot and cold minimally through a thermostat, just like a normal device. And it had a concrete floor, so I didn't have an easy way to vent through the system, so I was able to bring it through a wall and make it work. In this particular case, I do have a forced air vented system, but I do what's called a dual fuel method. This is my mini split that's located in my family room. And in my forced air system, I have it set on a Nest thermostat that it'll kick on about 5:30, 5:45 in the morning, stay on for about an hour, preheat my house, which is what forced air and gas does very well. And then I turn that basically the Nest thermostat turns that off when my house reaches 69 degrees. And then the mini split kicks on, and I keep it at 73 degrees just because the space I have is pretty large. And it actually keeps that space right at about between 69 and 70 degrees and really keeps the forced air furnace from kicking back on. And so throughout the day, when my solar is running, I'm actually heating my house through the winter through my mini split. So again, I'm minimizing that export. One of the beautiful things about a mini split, which is a heat pump, and I'll talk about heat pumps in a second, is it also cools. So in the summer, I live in Sebastopol, when things get hot for that 2 or 3 weeks, when it just is not comfortable, I can turn on my mini split for an hour and just cool my house down. And so works really well in that environment. A heat pump or a central heat pump is the same thing as a mini split, with the exception of it works as a central furnace. It actually vents through the entire house, as opposed to mini splits, which are often installed one room, or they're zoned. Maybe they'll put one in the master bedroom and the guest bedroom and having one in the living area. So this is kind of the new technology that we're talking about here. I first found it, believe it or not, in the Caribbean and Europe, where they're very popular. They use them a lot. In the Caribbean, they use them for cooling, and in Europe, they use them for both cooling and heating. But since they are all electric, it is a great way to work with Net Billing Tariff to run these through the day to minimize our exports again. And of course, we talk a lot about electric cars. And one of the nice things about an electric car is an electric car is going to allow us, this is my Volt, this is my second car I've had since 2013, but it allows us to, I call it driving on sunshine. And if I can, I'm retired, and or if I work out of the house, I can charge just during the day. And that allows me to basically minimize, again, how much power I export to the grid. The solar goes directly from my solar into my car charging and takes care of that piece of the puzzle. Under the older systems of net energy metering, pre-April of 2023, we used to recommend people charge their cars at night. And we don't do that anymore because now we want to, again, minimize how much power we export to the grid. It works very well. Another thing, one of the last gas appliances to leave a home is an electric range. This is one I just put into my rental unit. And the reason I put it in there was we had an old electric an old electric stove. And so I put in what's called an induction stove. I have never, ever heard anyone that likes to cook on electric ranges. They don't heat evenly. It takes a while for them to heat up. It takes a while for them to cool down. And so induction is very different. It works through a technology. Again, I'm not a scientist, but I'm going to call it magnets because it requires a pan that is magnetic. And because of that, it heats the pan evenly and it heats up almost instantaneously. And so a lot of people who did not like electric stoves love induction stoves. They're just great. And they come with an electric oven. Again, if we're cooking during the middle of the day for lunch, for breakfast, even early evenings, we can use these devices again to basically go directly from our solar as opposed to having to bring power in from PG&E in the evenings or pull power from our batteries. One of the other nice things about induction stoves, if you want to try one out, is you can, the Sonoma Clean Power's Advanced Energy Center, located in Santa Rosa, does offer many people, they can borrow an induction hot plate, bring it home and try it out, see if they like it. And a lot of people do. And then they'll go out and buy an induction stove. It works very well with solar and battery systems, but it's also about 10%, 5 to 10% more efficient than an electric device. And the one thing about these devices is I call them power neutral, because an induction stove or induction range, I can actually run it off of fossil fuels from the grid. If the grid's burning gas, I can run it off of solar if I'm running solar, a wind farm, but it allows us to use multiple fuels, where if I have gas or propane, I'm kind of tied to that market. Another problem I have found, and there's getting more and more research around gas and propane, is actually by burning inside the home, we're actually creating some off-gassing of those devices that is not necessarily healthy for people, particularly people with asthma, small children, and the like. So induction stoves, great way again. There's so many in the blog that talk about everything from running your power tools off of batteries as opposed to running gasoline. Take a look, tell me what you think. And yeah, thank you for listening. Please comment if you have any questions or you have any comments on future blogs you'd like to see.